Hi, Oklahoma. How are you? So, all right. Welcome to the test tonight, because you are the world's first audience to see this presentation. Not the stuff, which basically translated means I built this last night. So it probably will work. We'll see. So, and don't worry, if you get, it's only 20 minutes of me, and then you get the good stuff, you get Jerry, okay? And then after the Jerry, you get the really, really good stuff, the gear. Well, really, really good stuff, and well, I don't know, but yeah. All right. Tonight we're going to talk about, obviously, the Z9. In case you had missed it, we have a brand new camera. We announced Thursday, which seems like yesterday, but it actually was 2 days ago now. It's been kind of a long week, so it was a lot of fun. Obviously, most of you have probably already seen the stuff online. Nikon's website is full of video links. It's full of specifications. We're going to kind of cover those real quickly tonight, just to keep you kind of refreshed. And basically, as a warm-up for Jerry, because let's face it, he's the main act tonight. So we'll kind of do this stuff. We'll talk real briefly about the autofocus. We'll talk about how fast it shoots. Electronic shutter and the new stuff that offers, the viewfinder, the video, and a bunch of other stuff on it. So what you're looking at tonight is basically a kind of remodeled introduction to the media for the new product. So it kind of jumps around a little bit, and since I'm not supposed to change it too much, it will jump around a little bit. So maybe tomorrow night I'll fix it again, but we'll go from that. So the AF system. There is an amazing piece of video that starts with a bunch of birds in flight. About 4.5 minutes into the YouTube video that Nikon has posted, an introduction to the piece, it's actually this piece of video. Now, because Zoom doesn't play video at all, we took all the video out of the stuff tonight. And so anything embedded in video just makes it all jumpy, and we just took it out. So a bunch of still shots of it. If you want to see it, it's pretty amazing. These are small, little, itty-bitty birds that fly 1,000 miles an hour in different directions. And what we did is we hooked up a recording device on top of the camera as our friend Mike Corrado was hand-holding this camera and lens, trying to follow the birds around the sky. And you can see how well it actually tracks the birds as it flies around. What we didn't put in the videos posted up on YouTube is the final shot. If you go to Mike Corrado, C-O-R-R-A-D-O, find him either on Instagram, he's Mike the Bird Nerd, or go over his Facebook page, and you'll find his end result from the shot. He's changed it up the other night, and that actually looks like that. I mean, teeny, tiny little bird. I believe this was shot with either the 400 or 600 millimeter lens handheld. So it's an amazingly, it's all the autofocus we wanted out of the first time we saw the cameras. So it's finally come to fruition. So next up, we're going to bounce over to video. Now, I know a lot of us aren't video creators, although most of you probably should be video creators. There's a guy in the front row who actually only shot stills for like years and years and years, and then found a way to shoot video. And you're having fun, aren't you? Yeah. So for those of you who knew video at all, the limitation was kind of irritating. It's that 29:59 thing. Yeah, the video stops at 29:59. And we thought, well, that kind of sucks. So we broke it. We just said, screw this. We're gonna see my remote work tonight. We'll break it. We'll go to 30 full minutes. And then we thought, well, as long as we're there, why don't we go ahead and keep going? And we said, well, a little more. How about a little more after that? And actually, it becomes just about 2 hours and 5 minutes of 8K video recording internally. And there'll be a lot more on video as we go through this thing. For you video freaks, I've got some more specs on it for you. This is one of these buffer pieces the marketing guys put in there. One of the really cool things, anybody shooting sports or action? Because you guys know one of the biggest issues you have with any camera is, and it was actually said by one of our ambassadors, it's the image you make is the image you don't get to see. Because the mirror's up, or the camera's blacked out until now. There is no blackout on this camera. There's no hesitation, there's no stutter. It's just basically a live feed the whole time, and you watch it around the screen. So it's a truly blackout-free viewfinder on the thing. Magnesium alloy. A lot of the main chassis is a solid die-cast molded piece. The top deck and bottom deck put on top of that. When it's die-cast and molded, you don't have seams. You don't have seams, there's no way to leak. So it's an amazingly weather-resistant camera. And it meets or exceeds the Z6 in every test we can throw at it. So, all right. And by the way, you're seeing these things stutter because I replaced the video. This was supposed to run 5 seconds, and my remote control is going slow tonight. So, Z9. At the heart of it is a brand new sensor. And I could probably spend a half an hour butchering the explanation they made of the sensor for me. But it's a brand new, from the ground up, electronic sensor, stacked CMOS, that actually, when employed properly, virtually eliminates all rolling shutter effect with no mechanical pieces in front of it. No mechanical shutters needed. We're at 32 thousandths of a second with the new shutter, and there are shot after shot after shot during our testing that there's virtually no visible rolling shutter effect we can find. There was something posted on Twitter just this afternoon of an airplane prop spinning around, Z7 II versus Z9. And the Z9 has no rolling shutter effect on an airline prop as it's spinning. So I was actually with Andrew Hancock. We were playing with the baseball bat swings. With Rod Marr, we were playing with a golf swing, 120-mile-an-hour golf swing. And there's no rolling shutter effect in the golf swing. The ball came off the tee, it was still round. Okay. Something unusual for electronic shutters. Oh, yes, I forgot about this one. Sensor shield. This is a biggie. There is no mechanical shutter in the camera. There is a mechanical protective shutter in the camera that when you take the lens off or turn the camera off, it actually automatically closes and protects the sensor from dust. So now that you're actually, when you take the camera, I know I'm going out of YouTube's view. Sorry, YouTube. See, I'm back. Except I forgot my remote. So, I know, I hate standing still. Moving target's so much easier, so much harder to hit. So you take the lens off, there's actually a mechanical shutter there, and then you pop it on and you can expose the sensor and protect it again. Yeah, so. And by the way, it's not defaulted. I had to go find it in the menu. So. Also, is one of the ways we have this, I keep on saying rolling shutter free, but the virtually zero rolling shutter effect is because our scan rate on the sensor is the fastest currently in the market. And before anybody asks, no, nobody makes the scan rates public, but yes, according to all the tests we've done, we're the fastest scan. So we're actually scanning top to bottom faster than any other manufacturer, which is how at 32 thousandths a second, we don't have the elongation that would cause rolling shutter effect. Okay. And of course, with an electronic shutter, there are no mechanical pieces to move, which means there's less wear and tear. Okay. So the autofocus, we kind of tricked it out a little bit. For a long time, we've had the single point autofocus, the wide area autofocus, Dynamic 9, Dynamic 25, Dynamic 51. We had the 3D focus tracking, the DSLRs. We had a bunch of other auto area AF. This time we decided to take it a little bit more and teach the camera some new tricks at recognizing different kinds of subjects. So we went and we had people, which we've added to the Z6 and Z7, then the Z6 II, Z7 II. And of course, as eyes and heads and upper bodies. But now we're doing pets and birds and animals and vehicles and all sorts of, it's like cars, motorcycles. And I don't know why they didn't do trains, planes, and automobiles. Because that's the way I would have done it. So, I would have called it the John Candy mode. Well, Steve Martin was there too. But Steve Martin mode doesn't really flow. It's going to be the John Candy mode. We actually enhanced the auto area AF. So when you're in the situations where you don't need the pinpoint precision, where you choose the pinpoint, but you need it to be dead on accurate for what you're aiming at, even though it's over your head, it's off to one side, and you're trying to do that just pray and I get it, By making the auto area AF more accurate, we took in the standard Z6 and Z7 series, both the 1s and the 2s, in the auto area, we basically clump the focus areas together, make a little bigger focus areas for easier targets. Here we kept them smaller and actually increased it by about 5 times more targets for more accurate autofocus with your auto area AF. It would help a lot if this would, there you go. Vehicle, we talked about the vehicle area AF. This is the motorcycle. And just like with all Nikons, it has focus tracking with lock-on. So we recognize the motorcycle. It puts an autofocus sensor box around the motorcycle. And when the motorcycle disappears from the frame, it stays locked onto the bike, even though the bike is no longer in the frame. That's what the lock-on functions for. And of course, like with all Nikons, we can adjust how long that is held before it decides, okay, it's actually left the frame. We need to find a new subject. You increase that or decrease that amount of time. So, a nice part is within all these, if we can find a person in your vehicle, we'll snap from the vehicle to the person. It's pretty brilliant. 3D focus tracking, something a lot of the birders in the group have used, is back in the mirrorless cameras with the Z9. Okay, so this is a scene recognition program. So what it does, it takes the color and contrast pattern and incorporates that into the math algorithms of distance and acceleration and merge it all together. So I know that I'm photographing that guy in his orange sweater as he runs across the screen, and I can totally ignore the guy in the blue shirt as it comes between the two of us. So actually understanding what color you're photographing, what color pattern you're photographing. That's what 3D works really, really well for. It's not perfect. Team sports, it gets, okay, I got 11 kids running around in the same baseball uniform. If I'm on a football field, I got the same white helmet, the same blue shirt, and the same white pants. Right now, we're not quite good enough to get 7 from 17. We're close. We're really close. So that was what 3D focus tracking is doing right now. The eye area autofocus got enhanced further. Well, we've actually done, on the original Z7, the first camera we came up with 3 years ago, we've done, I think the last camera was 13 firmware upgrades, 9 of them enhanced autofocus. This one takes that to the next step, and the face recognition and the eye detect is even smaller within the frame. So the entire frame is pretty cluttered and she's pretty small in it, yet it's still finding the eye first thing. And trying to do this. There we go. This is kind of more of a housekeeping one. We've always had low light autofocus, and we called it low light autofocus. And the enhancement to the Z9, we went to a minus 8.5 EV detection. We actually renamed it. It's now called the Starlight View. So I renamed it for you. So you ready? Here. There. Now Starlight View. Yeah, they didn't do that. They left it as low light autofocus. I don't know why. So now it's Starlight View. But it does focus in very, very, very low light situations. The first time I saw this, I asked the question, does that mean I can focus on night skies? And they all looked around and went, I'll let you know. I haven't been home yet, so I'll let you know, hopefully. And Terrence, oh, never mind. I almost freaked out. I looked over, my camera's not there. I asked Terrence, where's my camera? It's going to be one of those days. All right, a little more video stuff, I hope. Yeah, there we go. 8K video resolution. 8K video resolution is roughly a 33 million pixel per frame file. Thing's massive. Okay, and 8K comes from 8,000 dots across the top of the screen. So it's like 4,300 and change dots tall. We'll have a full uncropped HD at 30 frames a second. We'll have 4K, movie theater quality, slow-mo built into the camera. 2 hours at 8K. We've already announced future firmware for stuff. We will have, out of the gate, we'll have ProRes internally. We'll actually have H.264, H.265. Well, a bunch of stuff we'll actually do ProRes RAW, or we'll do RAW file, RAW video in the camera sometime next year. be an upgrade. So it'll be an internal RAW recording for video. In addition to doing 8K 60p in the firmware update in 2022. So all sorts of cool things for you video geeks out there that like to play with it. Kind of what it looks like right now. Again, some more stuff. N-Log HLGs, the tones, over 2 hours limits. HDMI, you still record HDMI out. So we tried not to take anything away and just added more and more and more stuff. Okay. Including sound. We enhanced the sound on it quite a bit. We actually worked in partnerships with some of the leading microphone manufacturers in the industry to make sure that our camera is optimized for use around a broad spectrum of external aftermarket microphones. Okay, Rode and Sennheiser, people like that, Tascam. Speed. You guys heard this on Thursday. It will do 20 frames a second RAW file for 1,000 shots. If you don't need quite that many, it does slow down all the way down to a single frame. One push, one picture. But yeah, for those of you who are just trying to find the right moment, you want to try to get bat on ball, you want to get golf head on ball, 120 frames a second on 11 megapixel JPEG. 30 frames a second at a full res 45 megapixel JPEG. So we really try to give you as much as we could for as many different situations. And I got to tell you, 120 frames a second is a blast to shoot. It is not so much fun to edit through. True? Yeah. It's like, yeah, I didn't know you could smile for 6.5 minutes. It was like, so again, one of the golf swings, mechanical shutters, we found was redundant in the camera. It added bulk, it added cost, it added weight. We didn't need it. You don't have to suffer through it anymore. There is no more, 250,000 shots or 300,000. This is an electronic shutter. It turns off, it turns on. That's it. Okay. Nice part is you get the 45 million pixels stacked CMOS sensor. I still got to practice saying that. 45.7 million pixels stacked CMOS sensor, developed and designed, or completely designed from the ground up by Nikon. Okay. New high efficiency RAW files. We found new ways of using algorithms to reduce the storage size of a RAW file. And the RAW files in the camera, visually lossless compression down to about 1/3 of the original file size. So if you don't need huge, gigantic files, you don't have to use them in the camera and still get the same quality in post. Okay. All right. Again, we talked about live view. In live view, it's one of those really cool things that we named because we could. And so our new electronic viewfinder has we refer to as live view, which means it doesn't have blackout. But for those of you who follow computer terminology and watch every Apple event, it's a 3,000 nit display in the EVF. It's substantially brighter and clearer than anything else you've ever seen. And for those of you live tonight, when you get done, you'll put up your face and you'll have the same reaction I did, which was usually something I can't say in public. It started with holy crud. So, yeah. So, the monitor, one of my favorite new functions of the camera. I'm a big vertical shooter. I have to remind myself constantly to turn the camera horizontal for a lot of things that Nikon wants me to do with it. But the new camera has got a screen that pops out, like the Z6 and Z7 do. But then when you turn the camera vertically, the screen now pops out. So I have the ability to do a screen, a tilting screen from my vertical positions. And what's really kind of cool about that is that the user interface rotates automatically based on which side of the camera is tilted up. So you go grip up, it has one side, you go grip down, it has the other side. And before you ask, no, I double checked, it doesn't rotate for upside down yet, so Japan, upside down would be cool too. I mean, just because. So that is pretty much some of the highlights. So some of this cool little nitpicky things. 10-pin remote accessories, like on your D4s, your D5s, your D8, your 8008 cameras from way back in the day, your F4s, your F5s, 10-pin remote controls, PC socket input, wired LAN, full-size HDMI port on the side of the camera. No more micro, no more mini. It's a full-size HDMI port on the side of the camera. Twin memory card slots. You can use XQD cards. We strongly recommend the CF Express cards, something, especially the newer certification on the CF Express card, something similar to the ProGrade Cobalt card. That has a 1700 read and sustained 1400 megabit per second write speed. And you'll hit all the specs we talked about tonight. Okay. It is durable, it is solid, and it is VR safety lock and a bunch of other stuff. Kensington lock. Anybody here doing any kind of remote photography where you put your camera up and walk away from it? I now have a Kensington lock piece on it, so I have a steel cable I can wrap around that banister to make sure that it's probably there when I get back. Probably. Yeah, the button illumination. Anybody here do night sky photography? Well, now my buttons glow in the dark like on my D850 and my D5, my D6. Then I found something that's not on the slides yet. I found for you night sky or low light, nighttime long exposure shooters, my LCD and my EVF kept giving me night blindness quite a bit. There's now a red screen mode for it, including the red numbering. So your shutter speed apertures aren't bright white and blinding you either. Yeah, I got 250 of the second striped across my eyeball for a while. It's all red. You can turn it red, and even better, it's an adjustable brightness red. So you can actually put that into one of your iButton menus. Silly little things. I was playing around with the custom menu the other day, and we have a big thread on all the Nikon tech reps back and forth. And my friend Andy found and posted, it's like, look at this screenshot of the back of the camera. You have a front dial and a back dial. Okay, command input and sub-command input. Most of you know this is shutter speed and aperture. Depending on the exposure mode you're using, you get to pick which one does what. So you can actually have this be shutter speed in every single mode except for aperture, in which case you make this aperture exposure mode, or excuse me, aperture control and aperture priority exposure mode. So you can really the customization of it has really become pretty awesome. It's also smaller than anything you ever shot. You got the D6. I think it's something like 20% smaller in volume than the D6. It's smaller than my D850 with a grip on it. Okay. One of the first things I think you're really impressed with when you put in your hands is the size and the weight of it. The second's the balance, was for me anyway. Okay. There's my illuminated buttons. For those of you who network with a camera, shooting on assignment, if you're a photojournalist, you know how hard it is to get your images from the camera to somebody who can look at them and edit them for you. We made it a little bit easier. A wired LAN, a new SnapBridge app, a brand new mobile air app. If you are working for large organizations, we actually have a way of actually helping you control multiple cameras simultaneously from a single smart device. 9 cameras with a live feed on it. You choose between the cameras. You choose which shutter speed, which aperture on each one of the cameras. You fire them individually or in unison. Okay, all the same event, all off a smart device. So the advantage, we're finally starting to see the promise we were made 3 years ago with the new mount system. It's starting to come into its own. The glass is starting to get here. The speed and all the things we were promised 3 years ago, this camera is starting to deliver on that promise. At the same time we introduced the camera, we introduced a bunch of new glass. In fact, we even added to our roadmap to make sure you didn't get bored. So with 100 to 400, it's now reality. It's right there on the table. The 24 to 120, not 24 to 105, is now reality. It's right here on my camera. So we said, let's make sure you guys are entertained. So the 600 we announced earlier, the 400 we actually showed you it's in development. So that's what the 400-28 will look like. We did let you know on a little secret. It does have a built-in teleconverter, the 400-28. But then we added some new stuff. That's an 800 millimeter that's actually smaller than the 400. Then there's a 400 that's smaller than the 200-600 that's coming. And then down here on the bottom, we actually added a 26 millimeter full frame pancake and some new DX lenses. Just in case you got bored, there's some new stuff to wait for. Okay. A brand new FTZ, mechanically identical to the FTZ already on the market, but it has no tripod collar mount chin. So now actually when you're in vertical on the Z9, that tripod mount will not get in your way when you're hand holding it, if you're using some of the legacy glass on the F-mount side. So Z9, kind of wrap up of what it is, and get ready, we're really close. Okay? So I got Z9, the new 100 to 400. Then there's the 24 to 120. And I said, no, I called it, I had the thing in my hand for like an hour and a half before I realized it's not a 20, it wasn't a 24 to 105. And I finally read the lens bar and said, hey, it's supposed to be 105. They go, yeah, we know, it's 120. Which is, the 24 to 120 F-mount was my favorite lens of all time. Just, I loved it. So I'm really looking forward to shooting this one. Again, the new FTZ, and this allows you to use some really cool glass from yesteryear. I'm sure it uses the brand new F-mount glass we just came up with, the new 120 to 300 millimeter f2.8, the 180 to 400 millimeter. It uses the 105 f1.4, but it also uses my old manual focus 500 millimeter f8 reflex. It works perfectly with it. Okay. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this, there is no glass in an FTZ. The FTZ is simply creating the right flange distance between the sensor and the front of the camera lens or the back where the lens mounts to mimic an F-mount camera. So your F-mount lenses work on it. It's a mirror box with no mirror. So it makes it work with the F-mount lenses. Okay, that's the only reason it's there. All right, we also have new 400-2.8 built-in teleconverter. Brand new app. You will be able to use, if you're on assignment and you need to transfer your files up to an FTP server very quickly, you can whip out your cell phone and plug it into your camera and transfer your files directly to an FTP via your cell signal. For those of you who do any kind of tethered shooting, we have a brand new tethered software we'll be offering for you with all the current cameras for compatibility. So that's pretty much me. I'm going to take a YouTube. I'm going to take a real quick break. We're going to go dark for a second. Oh,
we have questions.
We have questions already.
So I will say the question, you repeat it so that YouTube knows what the question is.
Okay. So Sean's going to say the question. I repeat the question. Then we try to answer the question if we make up and go along. So, okay, YouTube, shoot.
All right. So the
First question is
battery life.
battery life. There's no official specs on it yet, at least the none I've seen so far. It does use the ENEL18 series batteries, the same as the D4, D4S, D5, and D6. So your D5 battery, same battery. I can tell you that on a D5 battery, when compared to a D850 battery, which the 850 battery is the ENEL15 series battery, same as the Z6 and Z7 take. That was rated 1,850 shots. On a Z6 and 7, it was rated a lot lower because the way they test mirrorless cameras isn't the same as they test SLRs, or it's too close to being the same. And I was getting an actual probably 1,500 shots or so on my Z7 II per battery charge. 850 is 1,850 shots. My D5 ENEL18 is rated at 4,460 shots. This uses a slightly more powerful battery than the D5 did. So, no special specs, but that's as close as I can get for you. How about this? A crud load of pictures.
That's official?
Oh yeah, that's the technical answer. Yeah, not official, but technical.
Do you have the refresh rate of the electronic viewfinder?
No, not available yet. I say not available to me. Somebody I'm sure knows it someplace. I don't have it memorized yet, so I apologize.
What do you think of the EVF?
From what I've seen of it so far, I started to drool. I think, was it you, Jerry, who said it was the closest thing you've seen to looking through an optical viewfinder that we had an electronic viewfinder so far. So it's much brighter. It's much, the Z6, Z7, both series was really, really sharp. I like the way it looked. This is even brighter and better contrast on it. So what else you got? No? YouTube's quiet? Yeah, what do you got?
I have a problem with banding in the electronic shutter on my current camera.
You will. Yeah, I have the question, the thing was, I have problems with banding on my electronic shutter on my current camera. Yes. No.
Why?
Why? Because the way that the standard CMOS sensor works, you're basically scanning it, and in the light sources, fluorescent LEDs, they're basically flickering or missing, and that's what's happening. So you're getting some banding on it. The way the stack CMOS sensor works is designed to eliminate that issue. Okay, and so that's why. Okay, sure. So, anything else? Awesome. In that case, oh yeah, one more.
One more from YouTube is, will current Nikon lenses be able to focus as fast as the new Z9 lenses?
I've never, I don't think I have any lenses to compare back. The only lens I'd have to compare side by side would probably be the 50-1.8 and maybe the 24 to 120 f4. And I haven't tested either one of those yet side by side on a Z9 because I just got my Z9 like yesterday, and I haven't been home in 5 days now. But from what I've seen, and Jerry, you had quite more experience with this because you actually got to shoot the product. I was actually on assignment to make sure that the cameras didn't walk off and people were, Jerry got whatever Jerry wanted. So that was basically my assignment for the guys I worked with. And by the way, hi Rod Marr, hi Andrew Hancock, how are you? So I don't have a lot of experience with that. So do me a favor, ask Jerry what he thought of the lens performance side by side, because I know he and Mike Corrado were actually doing quite a bit of stuff, playing around and having some fun with that. So if you have a side-by-side comparison, Jerry, that might be kind of helpful. I'm not sure if you do or not. So, YouTube, anything else?
One just came through, the CMOS sensor being designed and developed by Nikon. Does Nikon also assemble that sensor?
I don't know yet. Previously a lot of things made about Sony building our sensors. Sony assembles our sensors. We for quite a few years now, I'll call it decades, we have designed our sensors. We have then turned over the sensor construction to somebody else, in a lot of cases Sony, because Sony bought the machines to build the sensors from a company called Nikon. So my design, my machines, their labor. So yeah, I'm uncertain as to who's actually assembling the things for us, but I'll tell you that it's my design and usually my machine's building it. So, and as long as we're on that real quickly, I know that everybody wants stuff now. Who doesn't, right? Guys, the pandemic has really screwed things up, and we're all tired of hearing COVID being blamed for everything, but understand how long it takes to ramp up everything. ED glass. The extra low dispersion ED glass in our camera lenses takes 6 months to anneal or cool down in controlled situations. It's like aging a wine. If you force age it, it tastes totally different. If you force age glass, it performs totally different. So when in 2020 we shut down the factory, nobody was in there fixing the glass every day, doing the turning, it just stopped. We didn't start again until April of 2021. April, May, June, July, August, September. The first piece of post-COVID ED glass coming out of the factory is just now being put into a piece of glass, into a lens, and not even a box yet. Sensors, imaging sensors, +2, almost 12 full months to make an imaging sensor. By the time you say, let's build a sensor today, to the time it leaves the factory is almost 12 full months. So yes, we all want more. It's coming. It's coming soon. But we're not going to rush it because we aren't going to cut quarters for your cameras. Okay? So when you go into Bedford, you say, I want one. They say, we'll put you on the list. You say, yes, please. And as soon as it comes in, you get it. And that's just the way it is right now. Okay? Yes, I want more, you want more, we all want more. It's like ice cream. I scream and you scream, so. All right, YouTube, we're going to go dark for half a second. I think there's going to be some sort of maybe wide shot or something. Jerry's going to put the microphone on and do the good presentation. So, all right? So, see you in a minute. You guys will be right back.
That is a good day when you can find something like that. So life is good. And life is even better now with the Z9. I'm going to tell you, guys, photographing mirrorless was a revolution, I guess, for all of us in this room. When you went from medium format, if you've been photographing as long as I have, for 28 years, I used to have to do 3 actions to take one photograph of the Mamiya RB67. I had to cock the mirror, so I had to wind the film, press the shutter, and I had to do it all over again and change 10 shots. 10 shots per roll of film, and now I can actually photograph 120 frames in a second. So basically, in the time that I've taken to say this initial monologue, I probably could have taken 10,000 photographs, which just boggles my mind. So I've come a ridiculously long way to get to where we are right now. I remember I was actually told about the original meeting of how are they going to name the Z camera system? And there was the French ambassador along with the US ambassador for Nikon and the higher-ups from Japan. They were in the room and the French ambassador said, what shall we call the camera? Oh my Wait a second. My goodness. The Z series camera, very good. So now we're going to so stupid. If you haven't realized already, I like to have fun. That's just who I am. That's what it's all about. But I want to be very honest here right now as well. This is Testing, 1, 2, test, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yep, testing, yes. Making sure we're here. Yep. Very nice. All right, good. We're sounding fantastic. Hello for the very first time. Jerry Gionis in Oklahoma. Thank you so much for being here. Today's been a great day. I actually had Cracker Barrel. I've had the best fried chicken I've ever had, and you know what? I've actually passed by the gift store and I actually had Krispy Kreme jelly beans. And when you have Krispy Kreme jelly beans, it's a really, really good day. Now, what also happened is I remember being told the story of actually the camera, the Z camera system. How do we come up with the name? So therefore, we actually told the story that the French ambassador to Nikon, as well as the Japan rep, as well as the US rep, were in a room, and the French ambassador said, "What shall we call the camera?" Laugh now. Yeah. Okay. And that's how the Z camera was basically named. And it's come in a good time in my career, and I'll tell you why. The mirrorless camera system, I started my career 28 years ago. I started with medium format, and it was the Mamiya RB67. There were 3 particular things that you had to do to take a single photograph. Cock the mirror, wind the film, press the shutter, and every 10 shots you had to change the roll of film. And if you were fancy like Applebee's, I wanted to add that in today, you would have a 220 back and take 20 shots per roll of film. What I'm getting at is I trained myself to be precise and not waste any photographs. And it was actually an incredible time. And then of course 35mm took over, and then all of a sudden digital came around. My first digital camera was the Kodak DCS-760, modeled after the 5, I think, for the Nikon. And it cost me $20,000. 20 grand. Now at that point I was photographing 100 weddings a year myself personally, so I actually saved money that year. And that was like a 2 meg file. And look at what we have now. We've progressed so much. Now, when the Z6 and the Z7 came out, I was all in. Because as far as I was concerned, also my eyes are going, so I can't really see at the back of the camera. Have you ever done that? Did you wake up like at 43 or 44 years of age, and then overnight you can't see close anymore? Or was that just me? I was looking at my iPhone the night before, like this close, and I woke up and I'm like, you know that face that you do when you lose your sight? So then I'm like, well, what do I do? Then the Z series came out, and then of course you can put your eye to the camera and you can see a glorified, loop built into the camera and see your live photographs. Now what I did, I was with Mike Corrado, the leader of the ambassadors and NPS team, and let's assume this is the Z6 and the Z7. We realized there were 2 function buttons here, and we could function the camera in a really, really cool way. So what we basically ended up doing is in fact, when I photograph now, when I put my eye to the camera, I can press the top function button, and that is controlled as my menu. So it's a shortcut to my menu options. Now most camera systems will have a menu option. Put all your shortcuts in there. It's really, really good. For me, I will constantly change my image ratio, like from 5:4 to 1:1, 16:9, or white balance, whatever it may be. So while I put my eye to the camera, click on my menu, change all those things, I can take a photograph. The second function button I can actually use to preview my photograph, and then the AF on button is 100% magnification. So the efficiency of being able to do that at 1.8, 1.4 has been phenomenal. And to be able to see, and I've got to be honest, I was very skeptical about actually not seeing an optical viewfinder. I'm looking at a glorified TV set. It's not going to be that great. It's going to be tiny. And I've got to be honest, within 5 minutes I didn't care about it because it was so good. And now it's even better with the Z9. It's bigger and brighter and better, and it feels real. So that was a revolution to me. Now that we have 3 function buttons on the camera system, and we've also got these little sliders and buttons on the lenses, it actually makes exposure so easy because you're seeing live exposure, live white balance. It's amazing. So my exposure, in fact, at workshops, I would teach exposure. Have you ever heard the story about exposure in teaching with talking about what if you shoot a black cat on a black rug?
And why does it go gray? What if you shoot a polar bear in a snowstorm? And why, if you shoot program mode, it goes gray? I would do all these things. Now I just say, you know what, set your aperture, set your desired shutter speed, and then program the ring to ISO, and simply turn your ISO ring until it looks good. That's how I teach exposure now. It is quite ridiculous in the fact that we have this in our hands. And if those of you who actually came to my presentation last night, which a lot of you in this room actually were, we talked about purpose and meaning and engaging with your client. The fact is, the more the camera does the heavy lifting, the more I can engage my client and direct and pose and light and do all the things that a camera can't do. So I don't know about you, but anything in life, I don't like to blame the tool of my trade for what I'm doing. Does that make sense? Like if I'm playing tennis, I want a great tennis racket. I don't want to blame the racket for a bad result or a bad playing. So now, and I've got to be honest, like the 6 and the 7, like I said, I mainly used it with the focus system by focus, recomposing and shooting, or often moving the focusing point on single point focus to the closest eye to the camera and then photographing. I don't really shoot fast moving objects, but until the last year and a half, I do. I've actually been photographing performers the last couple of years because I live in Las Vegas. Now these performers, they jump, they leap, they twist, they twirl, all these different things. And then I'm like, oh, I would like to actually use focus in a way where it does the heavy lifting. Whereas I would get a performer leaping and then I'm like, click. And I'll look at the back of the camera, I'm like, I didn't quite get it. And then I'll keep on going because I'm not a sports photographer. I don't really shoot in bursts. And now thanks to my video partner here, Jason Neistat in the front row, in the last couple of years, we've been actually doing a lot more filmmaking. So he's inspired me to do music videos with documentaries, little short films. So we've developed an incredible team together to be able to film in different ways because my style of photography is very, I guess, conducive of filmmaking because I consider myself a director that happens to be holding a camera. So I was very, very honored when Nikon came to me and basically said, we want you to actually film an 8K music video. Now 8K sort of boggles my mind because even 4K, a lot of people don't have 4K TVs. Some people have 4K Apple TVs, but there's a whole ecosystem around it. And I'm like, well, 8K, that means a lot of hard drive space. Well, it's worth it, that's okay, but what can we do with it now? I mean, the fact is if you're on a limited time, limited budget, and you shoot a scene with 8K, you can crop in different ways and it looks like multiple camera sets. So that was actually incredible and amazing. So the good thing is when I had 5 days to spend with this, I said to myself, well, let me test it in a way that I have not used cameras in previous times with. In other words, let me rely on the eye autofocus, auto area AF, small area AF, large area AF. Let the camera do the focusing. And I find, wouldn't you say, that's half the battle when you're photographing something, and if you don't like a photograph, it's usually out of focus. Does that make sense? I've got a very low tolerance for lack of sharpness, but one of the worst things in the world is actually looking all your photographs and seeing a magical photograph and then going up to it in Photomechanic and then looking up to it and it's out of focus and you're like, no. Sort of like the drone shot, why? You know. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to show you some photographs that actually no one has actually ever seen yet. If you watched the launch, you would have seen many of my photographs and some videos. The finale to today's presentation, you are going to see a brand new video that no one in the world has seen yet. So Jason did a killer job in editing it. We had the finishing touches together, but a really amazing video of performers that's a finessed version that's not independent of the BTS video that we did. But let me show you a 1.5 minute recap of some behind the scenes, and then I'm going to show you some imagery along with some exposure data, and of course happy to answer any of your questions. Now, I am a Nikon ambassador. It does not mean I'm not going to give you a straight answer if Nikon doesn't like it. Does that make sense? I will be straight with you because I wanted real world experience. I've got to be honest. When I went into all the shoots that I did, I'm like, I was nervous. Will this camera live up to the hype? I'll just very quickly tell you that it does. But let me prove it, because there's one thing saying it, another thing proving it. So let's now show a short little video in 1.5 minutes of my experience with the camera. Hi, I'm Jerry Gionis, a portrait, fashion and wedding photographer and filmmaker. How much can we rely and have confidence in the Nikon flagship mirrorless camera, the Z9? And I'm telling you, we can. As a wedding photographer, I have confidence that this camera can perform in low light at ridiculous ISOs, catch contrast, catch focus, and it's been the camera that we've been really waiting for and yearning for. This is the one, guys. As a portrait photographer, I can put it on eye autofocus, put my camera on a tripod, engage my clients, and know that the camera can focus at shallow depth of fields at 1.2 and 1.8 and all those kinds of things. As a fashion photographer, I get the colors that I'm wanting and those beautiful colors that, again, Nikon is famous for. And now that I'm actually been photographing performers the last couple of years, I'm capturing these incredible athletes, these world-class athletes in full flight at the peak of their performance. And I can do that now with full confidence. And as a filmmaker and developing my filmmaking skills the last couple of years, I can tell you that actually filming in 8K in camera with no need of another device is absolutely incredible. All I can say, guys, that you've got to check out this camera, because to be able to create all of these shots in 1 week and test it out fully and it did not fail once, that is what I've been waiting for. That's what you've been waiting for. But I hope you enjoyed the images that we shared and the films that we shared. And remember, you don't have to be the best. You simply have to be better than last week. So guys, that was my experience. For 5 days, I had 5 days. Now, let me talk about it. I photograph multiple genres. I do specialize in people, but I photograph wedding, portrait, fashion, boudoir, and now, again, thanks to Jason, we do lots of more filmmaking and music videos and all those different things. So I wanted to test it. I don't see myself just as an ambassador for Nikon, but an ambassador for Nikon for the genres that I specialize in, because people from at home or in the audience are going to ask me, Jerry, what is your experience with these genres? And I want to answer you confidently. And that's why we did it. Okay, now one of the very first things that I did is I deliberately went out of my way to actually find out how this can actually photograph and capture the eye autofocus in low light. So when I was at the Nikon headquarters in Jersey about a month or 2 months ago, I got Mike Carrata, who is the leader of the ambassador team, and we basically, I said, I grabbed the camera and I said, Mike, let's go into the darkest room that you have. Turn the lights off, no window light. I cranked my ISO to 20,000 ISO. It was at about 200 at f2 or 1.2. And I just pressed the button like literally a split second and boom, it hit his eye. I said, thank you, that's all I need to know. Boom, put the camera back. And I'm like, well, if that can happen, that's been what a lot of people have been asking for. Can the camera grab the eyes in low light and very, very quickly? That was a big one, and it did straight away. So then I tested it when I actually started photographing. So if you know Photomechanic, it's probably the industry standard for actually culling photographs among many things. On the top right, this is a screen grab. There's no cheating this there. You've got 20,000 ISO, f2 at 200. And if you saw the BTS video that was actually released a couple of days ago, you'll actually see this in motion. We filmed her moving left and right and up and down and forward and back. And it's pretty crazy that the whole entire time where I was just photographing, every single shot was in focus. Now, why do I say 20,000 ISO? Just imagine a room dark enough where you had to use 20,000 ISO. That's how dark it was in this area. It doesn't look like it because obviously we exposed correctly, but it's a pretty killer combination. Okay. The very first thing that I actually photographed is a wedding shot, because it's been the genre that I sort of started with. I still do. So I put it on 85mm lens, 5,000 ISO, as you can see, 2.5, 250, auto area AF, and then bang. This was actually just using some ambient light that was there. There were some pearls in the foreground that gave me that beautiful foreground bokeh. And if it ain't bokeh, don't fix it. That was a joke that Jason gave me, so I can't take credit for that. I just love that word. If I was to open up a cafe, it'd be called bokeh. I think it's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So if we keep on going here. So this, I actually put on auto area AF. So I let the camera focus. I deliberately tested it. If I hide half the face and have her eye down, would it capture the focus? Because how would it tell that it's a face? Because most of the face is being hidden. Guess what? It hit. It got focus at f2 in a very dark environment, as you can see. Also, one thing that I love about the Nikon camera system, although we shoot RAW and you can go in any direction afterwards, I love the black and whites that come out of the camera. They're spectacular. If I had to tailor make a sort of black and white in terms of midtones and highlights and shadows and things like that, I think black and white get it right perfectly in camera. So that was an in-camera black and white. And as you can see, the ISO, 6400 ISO f2 and 250 shutter speed. Now, this one, there was light, like different color light. You got purple light, yellow, amber, all that kind of stuff. And as you can see there, we've got 250 speed, 2.2, 2500 ISO. By the way, if you don't own the 85mm f1.8, the 1.8, get it. That is my favorite lens by far for a very, very long time. And the new ones that I've used will probably replace those. But I'm telling you now, the 85mm f1.8 is great on my back. It's also fantastic that it can actually predictably focus full length and hit every single time. And most of you may remember that Joe McNally and I were actually commissioned to photograph each other a couple of years back, which was actually a huge honor for me. I'm like, me photographing Joe McNally is like cooking a meal for Gordon Ramsay. So we had an incredible time, but affectionately it made me really fond of that 85mm because it reminded me of that great experience. But it was actually, that's been my go-to lens for most of my portraits and weddings for a very long time. Okay, this was in the bevel of a mirror. So for those of you who ever see a bevel of a mirror, just go nice and close to it, shift around a little bit, you get a double reflection. And again, I was testing the focus to see, obviously if you're photographing into a mirror, you're gonna sort of confuse you're not seeing real life, you're seeing a reflection. Therefore, it adds another level of difficulty to focus. This was also using spotlights at this particular location. This was 6400 ISO, 250 to 2.5 as you can see. And it renders the colors beautifully. I think Nikon has always been famous for having true color out of camera, which is beautiful. And again, 4000 ISO, 250 speed. You would have seen in the BTS video, if you saw the release, the slow motion of this. To be able to have 4K 120 slow-mo in camera is amazing. This one, Auto Area AF, using the 50mm f1.2 was exquisite. It's funny because Jason, he's a geek for stuff. He'll just go into a camera store and find something to buy because he just geeks out on that crap, right? I love it. I see camera gear as a tool, and I love it, but he's the geek like that. And I've got the 50mm 1.8. I don't need 1.2. Just give me the 1.8. And then he gets the 50mm 1.2. Look at me, I'm fancy. Okay, then I photograph with it, and I'm like, there's just that 0.6 difference, but sort of makes all the difference. Does that make sense? So if you're on the fence about buying which one or the other and you find this is going to be a long-term thing, just go for it. Get the 1.2. If you can't quite afford it, the f1.8 is amazing. But what I do, of course, in this shot, I expose for the ambience. I'm using a tungsten spotlight, and I deliberately get that shadow mirroring her face. So you get this almost like a shadow. It is a shadow, but feels like a silhouette of her face, mirroring the shape of her face, and then she becomes her own muse by framing her face. It was absolutely beautiful. This one, of course, I wanted to basically shoot white dresses, like white wedding dresses. How are we going to choose for the ambience here? But again, Auto Area AF, f2, and it just locks on the eyes. It's really weird because I almost pride myself on driving the car, and I'm so precise with my focus, and people say about my images, Jerry, your shots are so sharp all the time. And I'm like, well, yeah, because I'm a sniper. You know what I mean? Like, I take my time. I breathe in, breathe out, boom, I've got the whole technique down. And now it's just sort of taken that skill away from me. Does that make sense? But it's okay because now I've got more confidence. So when the mirrorless came out, I find that two words came out of my mouth every time I talked about mirrorless: fun and efficient. Fun and efficient. When the Z9 came out, and after I used it, the two words were freedom and confidence. So now it's fun, efficiency, freedom, and confidence. And it's taking a lot of that heavy lifting away. I've sort of got to let the shackles go, not be a control freak, allow the camera that it's literally millions of dollars have been spent, engineers that are way smarter than me developing this technology, where I can now just spend time on being creative and crafting my photograph even further. So again, 50 millimeter, f1.2, this was actually f1.4. And you know, I loved being able to just add a bit of negative space. I love that beautiful fall off in the front. And yeah, I mean, you know, after seeing shots like this with, again, Jason's convincing me about 50 mm, go use the 50 mm at 1.2. And I'm like, here we go. And so that first evening was fashion and wedding. And then I had the next 2 days filming a music video. So Jason and I have actually filmed a music video for Ashley Amber, an incredible country artist. She has a fro hawk. She's got the curves of Beyonce, incredible singer, and we want to do our 4th music video. And basically we started off in this incredible spot here. It wasn't really photocentric, but I wanted to show you a couple of shots first, and as you can see the exposure data there as well. So it was almost in the form of a clock tower, and you know that some cameras might struggle picking up focus in this kind of situation with auto AF, but bang, it knew it, and I took it and I zoomed up to it. I'm like, oh, it's done. That's really easy now. Like, so f2.2, 250 speed, again with a 50 millimeter lens, beautiful. Then I do this kind of shot. This is a pro tip. If you're ever doing a shot in a silhouette, most of us will turn, if it's a female form, for example, turn the body away and get a silhouette. But if you turn the bust a little bit towards the camera, you get that little tickle of light in the bust. The face in silhouette adds a bit of luxury on the body, and then we get a gorgeous shot. And again, if you can imagine, I'm shooting a silhouette, but the eye autofocus picked the eye up very, very easily. Again, it's making my life easier. I'm getting rid of the shackles of what I didn't know was already there. So a lot of sports photographers, a lot of my fellow Nikon ambassadors have been using the 5 and the 6 in many different ways, and in sports mode and 3D tracking. I don't really need it because most of my subjects are still. So going from the 6 and the 7 and not really needing this high efficiency eye autofocus in all these different ways to then jump to this, and it's like, wow, this is incredible. Ignorance was bliss. I had no idea that this was possible. So that was fantastic. Then, by the way, I had a lazy 58 millimeter Noct lens, 0.95. It weighs a ton, but it's incredible. I mean, people are saying, oh my God, it's not autofocus. The glass in that, I mean, you'd have to have like a motor, like a generator plugged into it so it can actually turn those elements. And using it for filmmaking, but let alone stills, you can see the fall off so quickly. It's gorgeous, okay? Unless, you know, if you've got all the money in the world and you feel like you want to spend it, it's amazing. Do you need it? No. Is it awesome? Yes. So it's up to you guys. So what I want to do now is I want to show you the music video. It goes for a few minutes, and then I'm going to actually diagnose it a little bit and tell you sort of what I found and what we found together as a crew and as a team. So Ashley Amber, this was the debut was a couple of days ago, but it's really catchy, lots of fun. I hope you enjoy it.
If you love something, let it go. But I want what I want so low. Mama said, don't find love, love, love will find you. And the next thing you know, boy, you walk through that door and you hit me like, baby, it's you. You're the only one I want, boy, it's you. You got me saying, baby, baby, I do. I surrender to you. Ride or die, you're my last sentence is you, boy, it's you. Now it's all forever, I'm stuck like glue. Can't no one put it on me like you. Don't stop, got me like
All right, thank you. So I had a vision for this music video, and we chose specific scenes in the music video to test the capabilities, mainly of the autofocus. Now, traditionally, on a production like this, you would have a focus puller, which basically means you have a little knob, and you have one particular person whose entire job is to look at a monitor and basically either with zebra stripes or a color palette, whatever, and actually focus and follow along what the actual cinematographer is actually doing. So we just took that away. We said, all right, let's put it on auto Arri AF and let the camera do the work. So if you look at that video, it's just very subtle, it's very smooth. And you may think, did you really test it? Let me show you how we tested it, because you may have missed a few of the subtleties. First of all, did you notice how she was actually singing in a way where she was gesturing with her hands to the camera? What you don't know, and one day Jason and I will produce it, but a video that shows you the entire making of this video, that we have an incredible relationship with Ashley. She trusts me a lot, and when she's singing, she's actually mirroring exactly what I'm doing. She's more than capable of doing it on her own, but when we started working together, I just sort of went into a flow, and I started doing these gestures, and then she's just copying me behind the camera. So as I'm doing it, she doesn't know what the Z9 means. She doesn't know what all this is, what's happening. All I wanted to do is put her hands in front of the camera so we can test, will the eye autofocus come off? But it didn't, not once. Then, if you're filming this with auto Arri AF and it's a silhouette, and actually she's going from silhouette from left to right, one, creatively, I love that tickle of light and that silhouette of her eyelash, the tickle of light on her bust and all those different things. But again, we were testing the auto Arri AF where it normally perhaps wouldn't hit. And then we did a shot. You would have noticed a slider shot. We did 2 keyframes, one with her completely lit, and then we slid to the side, and it would actually pretty much get her in silhouette from this perspective, and again, it kept on hitting focus. So that was incredible as well. We love that. And if you've ever done video, it's a difficult medium. There's a lot more equipment involved. There's many moving parts. What this does, this basically just simplifies it. And I think many of us are really, really freaking out about just flicking that button. I was that guy too. I've dabbled in filmmaking. Jason here gave me the confidence and said, look, you're a director. You know your light, you know how to direct, you know people. Just flick the switch. Let's do more of it together. Because we always did behind the scenes videos, and then together we've created this incredible team to understand the nuances. Like, he's sort of like the Bruce Springsteen of our group, and he powers away. He's that guy that just does the work. And then I add the finesse and light and pose. And who presses the button at the end of the day? We share that responsibility, but ultimately we're both creating these films, which makes it amazing. So then we're at this grand staircase, and I'm like, all right, Z9, let's see how good you are. So we had a slider. You probably saw it in the behind the scenes on Thursday. We had 2 keyframes going, we're sliding basically off the plane of focus. Then we have these bars in the foreground. And I've got to be honest, I was fully expecting to film this and it not to work, and you wouldn't have known any different. Does that make sense? Ignorance is bliss. I'm not going to show poor quality, or I'm not going to show the camera that can't perform in this condition. So I was crossing my fingers, and we filmed it. And if you saw the behind the scenes video a couple of days ago, you would have seen that this worked on auto Arri AF. So we basically had these 2 keyframes, and I didn't think it would work, let alone I was sort of like okay if it didn't, because it was very difficult. But if you actually see the behind the scenes footage, what I didn't really expect was that as we go across the bars, do you see that white, the white little box in the arrow? It's sort of tempting you, well, do you want the other eye or don't you want the other eye? But it's auto Arri AF. It almost felt like the other box was preparing to come in the frame. Does that make sense? So as the bars were coming across her face, it was preparing the other one, and it worked flawlessly. It was actually incredible. It was really impressive. Then we had a slider shot. This was Jason's brainchild, to basically do a slider shot, beautiful subtle parallax with the roof there in the top, and we did that shot as well. This was a still photograph, of course, but that gives you sort of an idea. This one was using the Ice Light, 800 ISO, of course, as you can see, f2. and I squeezed in a couple of shots there as we went along. So that was the third day experience, so second and third day. Now we're up to the fourth day. Now, those of you who probably know me already, and I know many of you have spent a couple of days there together, I'm not a shy kind of a guy. And we went to a shopping district in Town Square in Las Vegas, walk into a boutique, and I just met the coolest looking dude. I mean, he was like, you know what, when I get older, I want to look like him. That was this guy. He sort of looked like a modern Moses. I don't know, man. Like he just looked really cool. And I met him actually several months ago, but I just had him in my brain. I'm like, I want to photograph him one day. Then we walked back actually a little bit into as I knew I was getting the Z9 campaign here in the US, I walked into the store and I met his wife, and she is drop dead gorgeous. I'm like, guys, I've got this shoot. You have to sign an NDA. Can we play together next week? And I said, of course. Oh my God, we saw your work. We're freaking out. So this is him. For those of you playing at home wondering how this was lit, this is basically in my studio. The canvas background that you see is actually not canvas. Believe it or not, I hired a painter, a muralist, to come in and paint and emulate a canvas backdrop 25 feet by 13 feet. Brown on one side and grey on the other. Best investment I've ever made. I'm not restricted by 9 feet anymore. This is an open garage door of my studio, the commercial property, and then what you see, that shadow cutting away that light, leading your eye into the subject, is just an 8 by 8 foot scrim jim cutter from Westcott. So it cuts away the light. More important actually than light really is shadow. Taking away that light and adding depth and dimension and form is just beautiful. Let's meet his wife. For those playing at home, it was like, holy crud. Is that what crud? I've never really heard that word. Is that like it's crap. Just say crap, man. Just like, don't be shy, man. It's fine. It's the English language. Don't be offended. There's too many things to be offended about. All right. So this was not an ounce of liquefy. She gave me self-esteem issues. But anyway, we're at 50 millimeter f2 at auto area AF. I don't have to think anymore. I know it's going to hit. And for those playing at home as well, just some extra tips as well. And you would have heard me today in Oklahoma. I often turn the body away from the light and turn the face back in. Turning the body away from the light, we get a shadow on the cleavage, the middle of the body. Turning her face makes me shoot on the shadow side, short side, narrow side, beautiful. Then we get them together, and again I'm shooting with the 85 millimeter lens at f2, beautiful light coming through. This was shot in camera black and white, in camera black and white. Now because we didn't have Lightroom or Capture One that would open up these files, we use a beta version of the NX software, but I got to tell you, we put it in, the black and white was perfect, and we just exported it out so that we can actually work it in Photoshop. So that's why I just love the in-camera black and whites. And I love the shadow sort of cutting across and everything like that. And then, of course, I increase my depth of field to give me a little bit of breathing space. I love this shot. I just think it's just super cool. Love the triangles in the shot. Very, very iconic. And they haven't seen these photographs yet because they weren't allowed to, so we can't wait to visit them and actually show them and give them a couple of 40 by 60s as a gift and all that kind of stuff. So, and there's another one as well. I love using the macro. I don't know about you guys. Have you ever photographed with the macro before? Most people think of a macro just for insects and flowers and things like that, but I love to crop in really tight. It's just one of my things. I just love it. Now, what you're seeing right now is the sepia picture control. Now, I'll say this on camera. It's actually a glorified mistake, and I apologize for saying this, Nikon, if you're offended by it, but sepia is monotone. Black and white is black and white, shades of black to white. Sepia is pretty much brown and white, if you think about it, to simplify it. When I first got the Z6 and the Z7, I noticed like 20, 30 odd new picture controls. I went to sepia, I'm like, boom, I clicked on it, took a photograph, this is not quite sepia. And then I'm like, but it's brilliant. So it's 50% desaturated, if I had to take a guess, and then add sepia in it. So if you're photographing, as I called her, a dark-skinned princess with this old-school cool guy, then and you shoot in that picture control, you don't quite it's a split tone. How does it look? How does it feel? And it's become a signature to my work the last couple of years. So I love the fact they've kept that, in my opinion, that glorified mistake, but it's brilliant, okay? This one here, I'm shooting actually with the 50mm f1.2. If you saw that BTS, I had my eye off the camera, and then I made him laugh. Now, what happens usually, if you pose someone and you focus on them, and then they laugh, especially at 1.2, they're going to laugh out of focus. And then you're going to cry when you see the photograph because it's out of focus. But at 1.2, I made him laugh and he animated, and then it hit focus. It was fantastic. Sepia picture control. For those of you who haven't used it, for Nikon users, and by the way, it is Nikon, not Nikon. Paul Simon was wrong. Go to Japan, where this was born, it's Nikon. Screw all y'all, okay?
Now we corrupted him.
Thank you, yes. You know how many times people have said y'all, and for me, I've grown up with that in movies. I thought people don't talk like that. That's just what people say in the movies, but the amount of times I've heard y'all, which means you all, and then all y'all, I mean, when does it go from y'all to all y'all? 10 people? I don't know. 12 people? But when you, I'm not going to say this on camera, but when you curse, it's like, oh, y'all, right? It's like it's my favorite kind of cursing. I'm not going to say it, but I think it's awesome. Okay, sepia picture control is amazing. And again, it was just breathtaking to photograph. So this was on the 4th day in the morning. Now, just so you know, I could have just kept it at one shoot and one music video and be done. Anyone who knows me, I don't tackle things, I get obsessive. So I'm like, I want to shoot all genres because like I said, I feel a responsibility to the community. You guys coming up to me, asking me questions, and I can tell you, this is what I experienced and so on. Next, I photographed this incredible designer. She's an ex-Zumanity performer. 85mm again, 1250, so f2.2. And I love the colors in camera, just breathtaking. Check out her shoes. They're made out of branches coming out of the bottom of the shoe. And that was like 100-year-old leather that she basically sewed together. I know her and I've photographed her before, and she's incredible with what she does, so I wanted to show it off. She had this bar that was basically mirrored like a mirror ball, and it was very, very dark. Again, so 2000 ISO 1.8, and caught her eye perfectly. I was wondering if it was going to try to focus on the reflection rather than her in real life, and it hit perfectly. I was photographing with strobe here with a reflector, and it's been funny. I describe it as, to her, I said, I pretend like Skittles threw up. I want as many colors in this particular shot as possible. And I've had some of the higher ups over the last couple of days send me photographs of Skittles and all that kind of stuff, which I think is really fun. So now the last day. So you think that was enough. I'm like, well, wait a second, I'm in Vegas. Let's photograph some performers and let's test this puppy out when it comes to 20 frames a second, 30 frames a second, and 120 frames a second, which I thought was a gimmick. I thought that was just silly. Why does it even have that? Why would we go there? But anyway, when you're photographing performers, these guys, if you've ever seen Absinthe, you know, the outside the Coliseum, the big tent, really funny show. It's very rude, but very funny. These guys are in the show, and then we hired them. Actually, Jason's was connection. And basically 2500 ISO, 1000 speed, 2.2, and I didn't have to focus at all. I just put it on a setting, boom, I'm done. And they were just incredible to work with. Then I worked with Natalia, and this is Auto Area AF. Now, picture this. We've got this cylinder, I don't even know what it is, but it's basically this incredible little piece that's like almost like a sculpture that rotates left and right and forward and back, and I'm like, will the autofocus catch up to itself, or would it be confused by things passing in front of it? And it actually worked perfectly. Now, just so you know, how you've got that beautiful misty sort of waterfall quality about it, I then put it on a tripod and a 40th of a second, and so I slowed the shutter speed right down so we get that beautiful blur, and then she just holds it perfectly still, and then we we get the shot, which is really pretty. One thing about performers is give them freedom, because they can probably do extraordinary things you don't know about, but also don't assume anything. If I basically say, can you bring, your leg here and do this and do a handstand and hold it for like 10 seconds? No problem. Like, it's actually ridiculous. Yes, they all give you self-esteem issues, but also you're wondering what you're doing with your life when they can do these extraordinary things. It's actually very inspiring. So this one, again, I was just testing, and we tested it even further. We had a fog machine going, and obviously when there's fog, the contrast gets taken away. Will the eye autofocus hit in different methods in different ways? And of course it actually did. Here you've got AFC, so I basically continuous focus, and she walked into the frame, it locked in, and we took all of these shots, and every single shot was perfectly in focus at f2.2, and she was moving fast. She says, "Oh, sorry for my COVID body." I'm like, man, if you got a COVID body, I'm Jabba the Hutt, but all good. It's quite crazy. Look at her legs. It's like she did not skip leg day. Like, girl, do you even squat? But thank you for those who know that reference. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now is a very small snippet of actually photographing her with the AFC. So I wanted to prove, because I can show a photo all day long, but for all you know, I might have just not shown you all the bad ones. But let me show you a piece of video here. I don't think there's any sound, actually. Is there no, I don't know, I have no idea. Don't know if I took that off yet or not, we'll see. Oh, there you go, no sound. So isn't that crazy? So for me, it's opened up a whole new world and a lot more confidence that when I am photographing performers, even if I'm in a dark studio with a strobe and I have a small modeling lamp, it enables me to actually focus and then boom, get the decisive moment and go for it. If I have continuous light, even easier for me because I can see what's going on. And again, it basically hits. All right, this guy impressed me the most, Luca. He was a last minute replacement for somebody who couldn't make it. And I heard he was a breakdancer. I'm like, okay, breakdancer, helicopter, I grew up in the 80s, all good. He was a beast. This was at 50mm at 1.3. You see the fall off. I deliberately chose the Nikon colors in the background there. So that was fun. And then you've got, this guy, look at his body. I can't. What do you say about that? I was telling people earlier today, I actually shaved my chest and body hairs to look like abs. So from far away, you're like, man, he's ripped. And I look really good from far, but then far from good. But it's all good. But I was shooting AFC 1,000th of a second because, he was moving so quickly, f2.2, and it hit every single time. It was extraordinary. I've never experienced anything like it. Usually, if I was doing something like this, again, I pride myself on being the sniper. I'm like, well, I know when the decisive moment is. Click. Huh? Look how good I am. All right, great. But then this guy's moving so quick, and everything was more exciting than the next thing. Where do I go? And then I'm like, finally, I'm going to test the 120 frames a second, which I still think is just unfathomable. But I just want to show you here very quickly. If you look very carefully here, you've got, so time, 7 minutes, 28 seconds, 28 minutes and 34 seconds, okay? This was the first shot in the sequence. So I put it on 120 frames a second, and I just press the shutter. And this happens. And this happens. Then this happens. And this happens. And a lot of stuff happens. And this happens. Like going through them, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And going through them one by one took a long time, by the way, but every single time it was in focus. And I'm going to bore you to death here, but every single time it was in focus. And I love this view because it looks like an 8mm film. But I wanted to prove it to you, And again, no one has seen this exact view, but then I grabbed that very, very first one. So if you look at it here, 1600 ISO, f2.2, 1000 speed, 7 minutes 28 seconds, 28 minutes and 34 seconds, 7 minutes 28 and 39. So what you've basically got there, you got 500-600 shots in 5 seconds. It boggled my mind. And then all I had to do was just look back for the best shot and go for it. This is the camera keeping up with his dramatic movements. I just thought that was, like I said, I thought that was extraordinary. So it's basically opened up an incredibly, like, it's opened up a whole new world for me, because now I know what's possible. I can go with confidence with my subject matter. I can go with confidence maybe shooting more commercial gigs or things that I wouldn't have had the confidence to do in the first place. And now I can do that with the Z9. Now, I'm not here to claim that the Z9 and every spec is the best in the world of every camera system. I don't know. I'm photographically monogamous. Oh, thank you, baby. I thought that was really funny. All I know is this is extraordinary. And all I know is that I think too many of us treat our camera systems like a sport. All I know is you do what works for you, what works with your subject matter, but at one point you have to commit. And all I know as well is that the incredible history, dating back for myself personally, my very first Nikon camera was the FM2. And now to get to something like this, it actually opens up a whole new world for me. Fun, efficiency, freedom, and confidence. What you're about to see is a video that no one in the world has seen yet. Now, you've seen some behind the scenes video of the performers. We shot so many things in different ways. We shot slow-mo 4K, we shot 8K of some footage that you're about to see as well. And poor Jason had to download all the footage. We had to buy terabytes and terabytes of hard drive space. We went through all the footage. Jason sort of puts it all together, and then I get the fun part. I come back and I finesse it with him. But what you're about to see is the world premiere, thank you very much, of a performer video, not a behind the scenes, purely and utterly for the love and the art of watching performers do their thing. Hope you enjoy it, and then we'll answer some of your questions. Thank you, guys. Again, Jason and I, we were doing this just last Sunday. We spent literally the whole day. It's funny because Jason came with his wife and expecting to go shopping and dinner while we just, tinker with it for an hour, and we spent like 10 hours tinkering. So, like I said, guys, for me, your camera is only a tool, but you make the difference. And I've always been about the arts. I haven't geeked out about gear really my whole career. But what a fine tool it is. It opens up a whole window to a world that I haven't really explored yet. And that's what excites me. The fact that we, living in 20 and 21, we've survived very challenging times. I, for one, am very thankful that camera systems have been fighting to climb Mount Everest and keep on moving the goalposts and making each other better. I'm a very, very proud Nikon ambassador, very proud to be part of this particular launch, and it's been wonderful to present to you guys today. So thank you for your time, and I'd love to take some of your questions from YouTube or for in the room, and I'll answer them honestly and happily, and if especially it's about Cracker Barrel. Or Cracker Barrel, as some of you would say. All y'all. I gotta just be careful that a cuss word doesn't come out. So, so yeah, any questions that you guys have got? I've rendered you speechless.
Answered everything pretty
What was your favorite part of the week?
Favorite part of the week, for me, and I know that you know this more than anyone as far as I'm concerned, the way I live my life when I'm working on a project, when I'm doing anything, I'm obsessed with the process, not the result. Does that make sense? I can look back at now and celebrate the work that we've done and everything like that, but the pure pleasure of photographing, creating, lighting, posing, directing, and being in awe of the brilliance of the people that we've photographed, like, we went from photographing in my wheelhouse, fashion and wedding, that first night, and that was very much, I felt like it's hard to explain that, I was the leader of that group. Then you've got Ashley, well, she's the hero, we're just supporting her, we're there to make her look good and test out the features. So celebrating her as an artist, which is amazing, and then celebrating that couple's love, and they just got married last year. Celebrating the designer, Wassa, was incredible. And for me, the performer day, that really inspired me as an artist, I got to tell you. Again, once you get over that self-esteem issue of all those bodies being perfect and what they can do, as a fellow artist, it just makes me want to create. It really, really does. And that's why I'm just constantly trying to beat my last week's effort. So the process is much more important to me than the result. And it keeps you humble, it keeps you honest, and it just keeps you working for that next shoot. So yeah. Yes, mate.
On some of these you said you were just strictly on auto area focus, but it's also focusing on the eyes. Is that a separate, you have to tell it also do eye focus?
So a gentleman in the audience basically asked, I mentioned in my presentation today about auto area AF, and will it focus on the eyes, and do I have to tell it that and all that kind of thing? Well, it depends on what mode you're shooting in. So obviously I was concentrating on photographing people. So, and you have a particular bias, and I think we have 9 modes that we can photograph on. So in terms of whether it's people, whether it's birds, cats, dogs, trains, I was sort of not really, I thought that there should be a sloth mode. I thought that would be a really good one, a llama mode, a Tibetan yak, but unfortunately it wasn't there. But no, in all seriousness, the auto area AF will get to the eye straight away. Pretty much all the actual ones, if you choose people, it will always be biased to an eye, and usually the one closest to the camera. What I had never really used before, and I'll be honest with you, again, for me, I'm very much a focus recompose shooter. In the last few years with mirrorless, or the 6 and the 7, I would just move the dial to the eye and shoot. But obviously, because I'm representing Nikon and my genres for this camera, 90% of that week was actually auto area AF, and then small area AF. So in other words, if I was photographing someone and I didn't want or multiple people, and I didn't want the actual focus to jump to different people, I would basically contain a box, either large or small, to basically have that really not even have an ounce of a potential of getting confused on another person. So really, I know this sounds funny, I think most of us don't read our camera manuals. Would you agree? Oh, yeah. Who reads the camera manual? Be honest. Apart from the Nikon reps. Okay, which is fantastic. I think many of us can it do this? If you read the manual, you'd be amazed on just different things that the cameras can do these days. So read the manual and then ask your rep, just ring them up and say, hey, I just want to know if the camera can do this, or this subject matter, what would you recommend? And it's amazing also to go to things like this in conventions and exchange ideas. There's always someone that will know something more than you. And that's what I like to do, is surround myself with people smarter than me, you know? All right, any other questions do we have? Yes, mate.
The type of light you're using on those video shoots?
Type of lights that I was using on the video shoots. Okay, let me see. So the very first night, in fact, it was almost exclusively ambient light from that venue. So there was basically chandelier light and different things. I did use the ice light, or ice light, as the Americans would say. It's an invention that I created about 10, 11 years ago, an constant LED light. The music video was a lot of natural light. We used aperture lights, which are amazing. Very, very, like super bright, beautiful constant lights. They're amazing. Let me see, the portrait of the couple in that morning, that third day, that was mainly natural light coming through the garage door. We used some aperture lights in the afternoon, and then we used a lot of ambient light for the performers, but they had some existing spotlights, as you saw, as part of the venue. For me, light is light, but there's also different qualities of light. For me, if you put your daylight white balance, like your preset on daylight, the little sun symbol, you'll quickly understand true color, and understand also that I think Nikon is really, again, world famous for getting great files out of camera. So for me, I know that if I'm seeing something that a little bit off, it's not the camera's fault, it's usually the lighting's fault, or something that's wrong, or an issue or something like that. So yeah, thank you for that question. Any other questions from the audience before we, yep, YouTube.
So from YouTube, we've got a question here. Is there a big difference between shooting sepia in camera versus applying the Nikon profile in Lightroom?
It's a very good question. I personally have never tried it, so oh, pardon me, yes, sorry. Okay, is there a big difference in actually the sepia picture control native to Nikon rather than actually going to the preset in Lightroom and choosing it? I'll be honest with you, I do not know. I have never tried it. Try it. If it does look like there's a bit of, you know, a little bit of color there, almost like a split tone, desaturated, I would actually try it for yourself. So grab one of your existing files and put it through those motions and have a look. But I can't tell you for confidence that would work. Again, it's a glorified mistake, but I love it. I think it's a gorgeous, gorgeous tone. Yeah.
So there's a lot of new features, obviously, in the Z9 that weren't there before in other cameras that you've used. You got to create this week where you got to try all of them.
Yep.
Which one are you the most excited about using in a practical sense in your everyday shooting? Which do you use the most?
So there's a lot of new features in the Z9 that are not in the Z6 and the Z7, and the young lady in the front row of the audience that I'll probably sleep with later on. She's my wife, by the way. Please don't try that at home. So what features in the Z9 sort of excite me the most? In fact, the feature that excites me the most, if you press a combination of buttons, you can watch Netflix right in the viewfinder. It's actually quite amazing. No, I'll be honest, again, I don't know the difference because I haven't really relied upon the 6 and the 7 for autofocus. All I know is that using that eye autofocus blew my mind. And shooting at 120 frames per second even has use for at a wedding. I mean, there's times where, I don't know if you guys shoot weddings here in the audience and perhaps at home, where I've missed the kiss because it happens so quickly. You know what, I'm not going to gamble. I'll just shoot, you know, a lazy 120 pictures in a second and just pluck it out and boom, I've got it there. So it actually really helps. Having the confidence of when the bride and groom walk down the aisle, I think is amazing. But again, that speed of focus for me is just is incredible. The flip out screen, I've got a bad back, so to be able to just flip it out both ways, I think is fantastic. Actually, I know this is just very basic, and I know that we already discussed it earlier today, but the ability to just, I don't know about you guys, do you guys do this like on a shoot? You either yourself or an assistant, you're like, have you done that? Who's done that? Put your hand up. We've all done that. I was shooting at the beach a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, okay, give me the lens. And then you slip, and it's like something's going to happen. And have you seen that guy on TikTok where he grabs the life hacks, like these shortcuts to different things, and then he'll basically show you the difference, and yeah, exactly. So it's hysterical. So he's very expressive. He's got a very wide sort of smile and passive face, but he'll show a life hack, like a shortcut to doing something, and then he'll just look at it the easy way. Like, for example, someone got these zip ties, put it around a glass, and now you've got a handle to drink a glass. He just pours a glass of water and just... And now I'm like... Like, I mean, for me to be able to, if Jason's filmed behind the scenes video of me, and I'm there with my tripod, I've constantly got to change the lens, but if I've got no assistant that day, I can just leave the camera on a tripod. It's so stupid simple. Take the lens off. I could have a conversation, go to the bathroom, eat some Skittles, have a drink, go to Cracker Barrel, come back, and then put the lens back on, and there's no problem. So that feature alone is a game changer. And I'm going to pimp mine out. I'm going to make it gold, and I'm going to make a grill out of it. It's going to be fantastic. And yeah, when I go to red lights, it'll just, come up and down and stuff like that. It's going to be fantastic. So, yes. Any other questions from YouTube? Yes.
So, since you have the mic,
yes.
tell the YouTube folks thanks for joining us, and to come and visit their local Bedford, if they're a local customer, or online at bedfords.com, and we'll let them sign off.
All right, guys, thank you so much, YouTube, for joining us. It's been wonderful to catch up with you. And please support your local dealer. This is very, very important. Bedford's Camera have been amazing. I have seen their operation the last couple of days. They've hosted us in Oklahoma. We've had an amazing couple of days. This is really important, guys. You can't actually just go online anywhere in the world and just, whatever works for you. You've got to support your local dealer, because when you need them, you just shook your head and you freaked me out there a little bit. Everything okay? All right, good. When you need your local camera dealer, they're going to be there for you if you continue to support them. So please thank Bedford Camera for actually putting this show on to give you a glimpse of some never before seen footage and cameras and all that kind of stuff. So jump on bedfordscamera.com to actually have some fun there and support your local dealer. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much, guys.